Hello and welcome. You've tuned into a brand new edition of WION Fine Print. I am Krishna Kumar and we begin with a big story. India and Russia are certainly taking their relationship to another level, and part of the many deals signed in Vladivostok was the first ever private media partnership that has been made part of a bilateral exchange between two countries. WION World is One's partnership with Russia's Sputnik news agency has been announced under the leadership of India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Russia's President Vladimir Putin. Now, this is an effort to increase cultural cooperation between India and Russia and consolidate the wide-ranging ties between the two countries. The partnership will also foster Indo-Russian professional cooperation. WION and Sputnik have joined hands to push both broadcast as well as digital content. Both players are pooling in their technologies and they're looking to focus on the creation of an interactive platform. Not only will this partnership boost the exchange of ideas, but it will also result in best journalistic practices being shared. Overall, it's an endeavor that is set to bring the two countries and their people together closer. Vasily Pushkov, Director International Cooperation of Sputnik, and WION's political editor Kartikeya Sharma exchanged the letter of intent for the partnership, and take a look at this.
How do you see Sputnik-WION tie-up enrich and deepen cultural ties between both the countries?
Well, I mean, of course, the cultural ties between our countries are already pretty deep. I mean, we have a very long history of relationships. But I've been talking a lot to our Indian colleagues, to our Indian partners, to journalists in India, and they still don't know much about Russia. And I can safely say that my colleagues as well, those who are not connected with India by their work, they have a very poor understanding of what India is today and what are the hearts and minds of Indian people are set on today. So there are a lot of unnecessary stereotypes that we together will have to just overcome and teach both countries about each other.
Can you tell us about your vision of the interactive platform which will come into shape between WION and Sputnik?
Well, at this point, we understand that WION is one of the largest media companies in India. We, on the other side, and Sputnik as well, we are the largest media company in Russia. We produce a lot of content. On the other hand, we have a lot of resources, as well as you do, new high-technology platforms that can deliver that content to both peoples. So I think we'll just have to think of the most efficient way to deliver content. We have to decide on the platform, we have to decide on the process, and then we'll just provide our audiences with the product of our joint work.
Now, WION World is One is getting you all the updates from the Russian city of Vladivostok. Our political editor Kartikeya Sharma is now joining us on the broadcast. Kartikeya, this is a historic moment in terms of media partnerships in the world. First ever private media partnership that is part of a bilateral exchange between two countries.
There are three things to it. The Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, is very happy that the private partnerships have far outpaced the PSU or the government-to-government partnership. Second, I think it is the first partnership to have happened in the field of information technology. Generally, partnerships in private sector have happened in context of coal, hydrocarbon, diamonds, forest, land, agriculture, shipments, skill addition in terms of value services. But this is the first time that you have a partnership which is taking place in context of people who are going to invest in each other countries in terms of information order. Now, this is the first time that WION and Sputnik is the largest conglomerate in context of video and visual stories will have an alliance with WION. And this is not in context of commercial alliance. It is in context of how do we present a world which is being dominated by a Western discourse. How do we present a world which only sees things in context of the American Western European perspective. And I'll give you an example. Whereas the WMD, which Americans actually propagated through their media portals and invaded Iraq. Iraq got invaded, but there is no WMD. And it is in this context, the larger Western political narrative has to be understood that most of the West Asian nation states have been broken in the language of democracy and human rights. So WION is an attempt to recreate a different grammar of language, a different hegemony in context of ideas, which gives a voice to South Asian Indian perspective of the world, which is Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam.
All right, Kartikeya, this visit by Prime Minister Narendra Modi to the Eastern Economic Forum in Vladivostok has huge significance. Over 15 memorandum of understandings that have been signed. In fact, yesterday you had asked Mr. Vijay Gokhale, the Foreign Secretary of India, about this particular MOU as well.
Oh, absolutely. And this is what Prime Minister is sitting with Mr. Putin absolutely said it. And Mr. President is happy that more than 150 people actually came. More than 150 people actually came and participated in the investment summit, which was more than the public sector enterprises. So I think, it was vindication of my question that what was answered by Mr. Gokhale was actually said in front of Putin by Mr. Prime Minister.
Right. Kartikeya, let's quickly listen in to that question of yours to Mr. Vijay Gokhale yesterday and what he had to say.
Kartikeya. Thank you. So my question is that number of commercial agreements were exchanged today. Can you give us some details, sir? And if any media agreement, commercial agreement was agreed upon?
Thank you. The commercial agreements are going to be done tomorrow, essentially during the Eastern Economic Forum. As you know, we have a big business delegation. We also have a pavilion. But our understanding is that in excess of 30 commercial agreements are going to be signed in the course of tomorrow. This number could go up. Some are still under negotiation. I don't have the details specifically. We could certainly share that with you. But I think the Prime Minister also told President Putin that the fact that the commercial agreements outnumber the governmental agreements is a good sign, because ultimately the economic and commercial relationship between India and Russia will grow only if there is commercial participation and business participation in this process. So the Prime Minister is very encouraged by the fact that we have a serious delegation which has come from the business and industry side, and we are going to sign a very substantial number of agreements.
Kartikeya Sharma continues to join us on the phone. And Kartikeya, that was the response that Foreign Secretary Vijay Gokhale had to give you yesterday. I want to ask you more about this partnership between WION and Sputnik. It is keeping in mind the future of news, and both WION and Sputnik will be pooling in their technologies, pooling in their capabilities, and there's also the talk of the interactive platform.
I think more than that, I think it is about consolidating the idea of culture. Russia and India has a very privileged and a distinct relationship, and I would say that it is not about state and state cooperation. You would understand, Krishna, that you would go to Daryaganj, which is old part of the old city of Delhi, and you'll find Dostoevsky, Chekhov, Gogol, Leo Tolstoy, and many other Russian writers in vernacular and English languages.
Right. So Kartikeya, not just that. For example, the Russian cultural centers in India, once upon a time, were far more buzzing than the U.S. consulates until things changed.
Absolutely. Which means that the connection between the Russians and Indians is more to do with people and less to do with the state. And this is not to underestimate that the first Prime Minister of India was very much influenced by the Soviet Russia 5-year plan. One, the investment in the public sector units. Second, the 10-point programs. Most of them came from Russia. Most of them came from the Soviet Russia. By saying that, I would say that the relationship between Soviet Russia and post-Russia is very, very important in context of the people. And secondly, there is a great chemistry between Prime Minister Modi and Putin. And lastly, I would like to say, Krishna, I think in any relationship, there has to be an impetus which is provided by a person. Very rarely it happens that diplomacy and the personal chemistry merge. It happened with Jawaharlal Nehru. It happened with Indira Gandhi. It is happening with Narendra Modi. And the chemistry between Putin and Narendra Modi cannot be denied. He spent more than 2 to 3 hours with the Prime Minister, and he was there with the Prime Minister till 1 a.m. I think that's an unprecedented thing. And for him to say in an interview that no World Forum can succeed without India and China is a big statement.
Kartika Sharma, our political editor, joining us on the phone line from Vladivostok in Russia. Thank you, Kartika, for joining us. That's the big news here on WION Fine Print. WION and Russia's Sputnik news agency have joined hands. The Memorandum of Understanding has been announced as part of the bilateral exchange between India and Russia at the Eastern Economic Forum in Vladivostok.